Welcome to Spokane Talks. Kent Adams, hope you're having a good day. Today is kind of an unusual one in that we're not doing a big open, we're not doing a big close, we're not going to take commercials in the middle. We're just going to have an honest, straightforward conversation. And not that we don't have those every day, but a couple of us have thought that this is a serious issue, and that is how we all get along and how we communicate with each other. Let me go back to a conversation I had with Rob Harris, who's the morning reporter up at KREM. I mentioned to him that I have grown to respect and admire one of our newest hosts, Stephanie Regalado, who hosts She Says. And Steph and I had this conversation at the very beginning. I think even before you started your first program here, you had done it before, that I'm kind of known to be a little bit conservative. And some people think everything we do here is that. The fact is, if they look at all of our programs, they'll find that that's not the case. But that you have the ability to pick your guests and topics, and you're going to know it better than I am anyway. I mean, let's face it, right? And that you have that leniency. And I might not like everybody you have or the positions that they have, but that's okay. Because one of the things we do strive for here is a little bit of diversity, which means different thinking and so forth. And I was telling Rob, I said, I really have grown to really respect Stephanie, you, through this process and your support for what we're doing and for bringing good conversations. I mean, you just had one a while ago about cancer and so forth and how to cope with that in the family and some of the other people you've had on. His comment to me was, well, you and Steph should sit down on the air and talk about that. I think that was a Wednesday lunch I had with him. Thursday, you were doing your program, and I caught you before you went on the air and mentioned that to you. And what was your response?
Just tell me the date and time.
Exactly. So here we are.
Yeah.
How are you today?
I'm lovely.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. So that's setting the tone, which is, I think, what we want to do today, and that is maybe to help set the tone for the community. We've both seen on both sides, it's not just from my perspective, the liberals, and not just maybe from your side, those of us on the right. I was labeled in the words that we put out as a Republican. Yes, I'm. That's where I vote if I have to, do partisan stuff. I really consider myself a conservative, and that comes from my growing up and everything else. But how do we begin to engage the community to do what you and I are doing right now, which is, I get the idea of protesting, I get the idea of Facebook and all that, and I've been just as guilty as anybody else. To me, Facebook, for the most part, is for that kind of thing, in that I look at it as I can be a smart ass, say something, then disappear and not respond, because there are some crazy things out there coming from all sides. How do we begin to engage what we're doing and what we really think the community ought to be doing?
Well, one thing that caught me when we did our little promo yesterday and today, when you mentioned that you may not like some of my guests and you're going to be okay with that, well, I would challenge you to wonder why you determine whether you're going to like or not like someone.
Well,
to begin with,
mainly their positions.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a strange thing for me, and why I can get along with so many people, I think, is I'm not going to take on any of your positions or the way you feel.
Right.
The only time as colleagues and friend to friend, I have high expectations of those around me. So if there is dialogue that I see on Facebook or in other ways that I don't think contributes to a positive movement in any way, then I am more inclined to make a judgment there. And we've had those conversations before.
Yeah.
And when Stephanie Cates and I were talking, we talked about using certain hashtags that might be fun for the party, either side.
Yep.
But they're supposed to be derogatory toward the other one, and that's just not a way to play. It's juvenile. I mean, if you want to flush it all out. So, and that just contributes to the divide between us.
Yeah. Let's. You did this and I caught the comment yesterday, you did this for us when we did radio,
Yes.
and thought maybe I had selected to not do it.
Yes.
And I don't remember
For
that.
She Says, yes.
I don't remember that being the reason.
Yeah.
Honestly, don't.
Yeah.
It might have been part of the reason. I
Yeah.
don't know. But at that time, we had individual programs and
Right.
and so forth. Versus, there's a whole different thing when you're now half owner of a TV station. That you can't just be one particular side or the other. The fact is, you may have people on from an organization or two that I don't agree with. Okay, I might do the same that you might not agree with. Okay, but I try to empower all of our hosts who are, for the most part, not media people, who are
Right.
experts in their area,
Yeah.
health or real estate or whatever, to bring on who they think will, entertain is probably the wrong word, but help
Right.
inform
Yeah.
our viewers. And to me, that's what's important. And I don't know all those people.
Well, and you think we're ranking it like half and half.
Yeah.
For conservatives, progressives, or whatever. I mean, there's blurred lines there.
Yeah.
But often when polls are coming out, I don't know what exactly the numbers are, but we're pretty close to being. So if you want to have a conservative show, then you're losing out on half of a potential population and people that you actually want to reach because you believe in the messages that you're sharing.
Exactly. My Brian, my business partner,
Yeah.
reminds me often. I won't say how often. Could be daily or more often than that.
Yeah.
Always selling. Remember, let's not turn off half our audience.
Right.
And we've been accused, even by the mayor's office and others, of being this kind of station and so forth. And the fact is, it was because of maybe things I said on Facebook as Kent,
Yes.
not as station, okay? And I know for a fact that that person had never really seen any of our programs because they would not come away with that impression
Yeah.
with what we do.
Well, and that is the risk in this day and age with social media.
Yeah.
On Instagram last week, there was a man that I was connected to. A lot of people are connected to him professionally, it seems, and he was posting some sexual content that I found super disturbing. The first time I'm like, okay, I'm not sure if I'm just being
Yeah.
a little prudish here, but I'm gonna let that go. And then a couple other ones, something caught my eye, so I went to his page and I was like, no way am I gonna be a part of this. So then I looked and Sheriff Ozzie was following him, and I mean, I could call it lots of people. So and I know the sheriff would never want to be associated with that kind.
Right.
So I just kindly sent messages and said, hey, I just want to,
Yeah.
I've been noticing this over time, and I noticed that you're following as
it's
well.
It's growing, perhaps. And
Yeah, and I noticed you're following, so then there's an association with that. I wanted to make sure you were aware of it so you could choose whether or
Yeah.
not you wanted to continue following. He is the only one of all the people that I sent messages to that responded right away and said, I'm not very active on that page on Instagram. Thank you for letting me know.
yeah.
And-
Yeah, sometimes we don't know what we don't know.
No, but
I mean, what's
and
going on
so
out
here's
there?
this guy who's a business guy, and he's on Instagram, and maybe he feels a little safe because some platforms you have a different feeling what you can
Yeah.
express. Maybe some are more personal, maybe some are more professional.
Right.
Maybe his Instagram is more of his side. But guess what? We are all things at all times.
Yeah.
We are a professional. We are our company we represent. We are ourselves personally. We are in every situation all the time. In this day and age, is personal brands,
It is.
and yeah. So
And we check
That's-
on future employees on their Facebook and their
Absolutely.
Twitter and everything
Yeah.
today, don't we? We don't.
Yeah. I've told my children since part of them being allowed to have social media was with the understanding that they have bright futures,
Yeah.
and it's not some place to dump emotional baggage or to just in a blip of a reactionary moment say something.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it just shows that people aren't, or maybe they are aware, but they just don't choose to understand they're in total control of their emotions.
Yeah.
And that's one of the difficulties I see. Well, I'm kind of like watching people and how they unfold and discuss things with one another. That you're in charge. No one on this planet makes you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
You choose to feel a certain way. And so when you feel that physiological response, and I'm telling you, those keyboard warriors, and even you said you go on there and take a little jab and
Yeah.
then you bounce out.
Yeah.
That's just a reactionary thing. So I always question people, like, when you're feeling that, don't even go near a keyboard.
Yeah.
Do some jumping jacks. Drink some water.
Have a stiff drink, maybe even.
Deep breath in, deep breath out. Yoga. I don't care what it takes, because we all have to. I think have to. No matter what we believe in, you and I could lay out some things right here
Right.
and not see eye to eye at all in them.
I'm sure.
But you need to be. I would think, want to be as positive as possible of a force within those.
Yeah.
As well as I would want to be as positive
Right.
of a force, because without the positivity, you don't have ground. You don't have traction.
Yeah.
I mean, you may have the half,
Yeah.
and you're all angry together,
Yeah.
and that's what. So now we have these two halves swirling and people in between.
One of the things that I kind of react to, and I'm seeing this trend, and maybe you do too, is a lot of name calling. If you put out this particular position, therefore you must be racist.
Oh,
And
you were mentioning that.
I'm
yeah.
seeing that thrown out there, which really bothers me. You know,
Well, yeah, but I guess do you really have to shake it down and
Yeah, and-
one thing I think people always have to listen. So if perhaps you're being called racist for something, instead of feeling like you want to defend something, maybe step back for a moment and wonder why.
Well, I'm not even
what
talking
the
about
points
for
are.
me. I'm talking
No,
about
just
even
a
for other
human.
people.
Yeah, humans. Because
yeah.
I don't know without like direct example. And I do think people are just it's really hard work to sit back and think
Yeah. Well,
and to be calm and peaceful before you have an interaction with someone.
and we're so busy doing this and that and so forth that it's respond and move on to the next thing, because none of us, or at least many of us, don't just sit there and
Yeah.
wait for the feedback, and
Yeah.
we're doing things, whether it be kids or jobs or community or whatever.
Right.
How do we begin to move people to sit down like you and I are right now and agreeing on being I'm interpreting this as being better people. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to
Right.
be a better person. You're already there, so you don't need to work on it.
Well, one thing I am naturally curious, and humans of all presentations fascinate me.
Yeah.
So that puts me in a different position already, because I'm
Yeah.
taking in a lot of education from people, and I'm fascinated by the things that led them to certain belief systems
Good.
and how they are in their stances, knowing also that that's completely separate from my own experiences and where I am and why I feel that way.
Right.
And I don't feel as though I need to bat anyone over the head about anything. Like I said in the promo, I know my power. We all have a voting power.
Yeah.
We can all really hone in on what and why we feel the way we do, and then vote that way. We don't have to be out being campaigning.
Yeah.
And suddenly we have masses and masses of people who are campaigning.
Yeah, we do. We do. I might mention right now that Steph and I will take your questions on Facebook, and that's why I have the iPad here, not for notes, because you have
I have a notepad.
an empty notepad, and we agreed.
In case I had a thought.
and we agreed coming into this, we
Yeah.
weren't going to prepare. That this is going to be an open conversation, which is what we try to do all the time. Now, sometimes I got a kick. We had a guest yesterday, and she sent me pages and pages and articles and everything else about her business. And you should have seen the expression before we went on the air yesterday when I said, I haven't read any of it.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as an editor of a magazine and a journalist and all of that, you
Yeah.
would be more prepared. But what we try to do here is to have the
Yeah.
conversation, which means
Yeah.
I'm going to learn,
Yeah.
right now, and our viewers are going to learn
Right.
too. And
Yeah.
so if you've got questions, please feel free to put it on our Facebook, and we'll try to, I'll put my reading glasses on so I can actually see it.
Maybe we should shift it over here.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Yeah. Well, since you're so much younger than
Right.
I am.
At
Oh,
least
gee.
100 years.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, hey, I still remember my pet dinosaur's name. Okay.
Your plastic pet dinosaur?
No, my real-
you had a real
This is age
Oh,
related. Yeah.
yes, okay, yeah.
Okay. All right. So much for my humor, right?
No.
Yeah. I want us to explore, and I don't have the answers. I'm not sure.
Yeah. How do you tolerate me? How are you open to me in the first place, and why did you let me come back on knowing that I'm not a yes woman and I'll do what I want to do?
I think
no
part of
matter
that
what?
because of that, okay? Because of what I said earlier, Ryan reminding me, not just in your case, but the fact is that we need to have a diverse offering of programs. That's what we can do.
Yeah.
Who else it's certainly not going to be me or Ryan that would do a woman's show. Okay, who else in the community?
try.
Who else? Who else comes in contact with so many leaders and up and coming people and knows what's going on than the editor of the Spokane Coeur d'Alene Living magazine? Okay, so your position puts you in that, number
Right.
one.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was going, okay, all right, she had some crazy guests on before. I'll even tell you a story about one of them.
Okay.
But that's okay. That's what we want.
Let's hear about this crazy guest story.
Okay, it was a guest you had on who then, a year or so later, in a different setting, labeled me and somebody else that I work with as old white men. Now, if I had labeled that person as a middle-aged black person, that would be signaling racism. I think that we need to have the standard on both sides. I would never have thought to call that other person a black person.
Was the person black?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who my
No,
guest
I know,
was.
I know. And I don't want to get into who it was.
Oh,
and
no,
all
yeah,
that.
we no need to.
No. But that just caught me, what? And that person fights for equality and everything?
Right.
And I'm going, why? Why do I have to be white? Why can't I be a person? Yes, I am a male. I am white. But that's,
I don't
that's not what has to define me.
Right. Well, and I don't know what the context was of what led to that moment. If there was some, but one thing I heard, Sherry Jones, my guest last week, and she said that she was at I think maybe it was at Gonzaga. They had something on racism, and they had, and women, I believe, and they had several female black women that were presenting, and Sherry was asking, well, what do we do? What can we do?
Yeah.
What can the white girls do for you?
Right.
And they said, we want you to listen. We want you to understand. We don't need to jump in and help. So anyway, so sometimes that is what we have no idea of anyone else's oppression.
Yeah.
And when it's historically been an oppressive situation,
Right.
it's super delicate, and that's an area I believe we should kind of step out of that arena
Yeah.
and listen, even when we don't like what we hear.
Yeah.
Just to be eyes wide open about how we are being perceived in certain situations.
Yeah, and then on the other side, because this comes from all sides, a very right-wing person took me on for some of my positions, and especially in support of Ozzy and so forth, and some of the things they're doing. And my response was, this would be better. Why don't you come on and have a conversation with me? Oh, no, don't want to do that. Excuse me. If you want to engage in something in a decent way, an adult way, let's get off Facebook and let's sit down and
Right.
talk.
Well, and that's
but they
how-
don't want to come in. I don't get it.
Well, because it's like it said in our little teaser, to demonize or to humanize.
Yeah.
That's the unspoken question between people. And if it's not always black and white like that, but really if you make it black and white, you can really start being more aware of how you're categorizing other people.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to come, or she doesn't want to come have a conversation in person, on air, over coffee, doesn't matter, in person, because then it's two humans.
Exactly.
Coming together and having
But isn't that what we
conversation.
need to do, though?
That's what we need to do, absolutely.
And how
of course.
do we get there? Because I think one of the things, I don't want to end this program in 15 minutes or whatever it is, and go, we didn't come up with any solutions. Although, honestly, and you might agree with this, the solutions are out there and are available, and including here and other places, maybe not on Facebook and
Right.
Twitter and everything
Yeah.
else.
Nothing's going to be solved. No minds are going to be changed on social media. So I think if people
Yeah,
can
got to get
absorb
them back
that- if people can really wrap their mind around the notion that no minds are going to be changed
Right.
on social media,
Right.
then maybe that's a first step. And it's just a big throwing mud show. Do we have a question?
No, we don't have a question yet.
Man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We must be solving it, all the questions, we're answering everything.
All the stars are aligning right now.
Yeah,
as we're
like that's
speaking.
going to happen, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm
Leave
good. Obviously, you must be better because we're getting it taken care of.
Exactly. So I mean, we have to take 100% responsibility in all times of how we leave our mark on people, how
Yeah.
we express ourselves.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't even judge people who do. You mentioned wearing kitty cat hats and such.
Yeah.
I don't judge them. That's the way they have a reason. And we talked about this with one of my other guests. Things have been building up and building up and building up for a long time. And it's just like the whole racism card and then the gender card. A lot of women do. Women still aren't paid equally in a lot of industries. So there are still a lot of, I mean, when you think it was not that long ago, really, in the history of humans, that women couldn't vote.
What? They can vote now?
I know you told me I could vote because I did something great. I don't remember. Oh no, you said they're gonna let women vote now because of whatever. But
And sometimes in my case, I know people take a joke
Yeah.
like that I'm doing, and
Yeah.
they get real serious about it. And come on, we got to have,
that's it. We're also in charge of our level of being offended.
yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, I bring everything back to personal. We're in charge of our emotions. No one offends us. We choose to be offended.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, it's just too much weight on me to carry this shit around. And that's why I have to let it go a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I joked in our promo that I let the little woman up inside my head chew the paint off the walls with her teeth.
Yeah.
Because there are times when I'll see something, but I learned, like, okay, what we put in our bodies is important. What we put in our minds is important. So if there's someone...
She looks at me when she says mind and body.
No, I have a mirror too. But we have to choose, and if it's something we don't care for, instead of feeling compelled that we have to correct it or make
Yeah,
a comment, I mean, there's one thing to stand up for other people. That's a different
Yeah.
notion than this, what we're talking about here.
Right.
But it's a brilliant tool on Facebook and such to unfollow. You don't have to throw humans away and block them entirely. But you're just like, you man, we're not aligning right here. I can't put this into my body and spirit and soul.
You
And
know,
unfollow and move on.
I've been finding myself doing that, and not so much sometimes of my friends or people I've associated with over the years. I'm not necessarily unfriending them because of
Right.
who they are, but because of some of their people who come on, have no idea
Yeah.
who I really am, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden the topic has become fired up, and I'm going, I don't need that in my life. Sorry,
Yeah.
goodbye. You know?
Right. Well, and yeah, Stephanie Cates and I spoke about that too, that I had commented on her Inlander story. And then it was like, I had all these women who are obviously friends and supporters of Stephanie. And Stephanie are friends, so I
Yeah.
get along with
Yeah.
everyone. And they were just after me, and they didn't know who I am. They don't know the history of who I am, the work I do in the magazine,
Right.
the compassion that I have
Right,
for
right,
humans,
right,
etc.
right.
And you also, everything you put out there is one-dimensional. You don't, I mean, you keep making me excited that we're going to have a question.
Okay. Kent's got to put his reading glasses on now, so dance a little or
We
do
have
something.
a live one.
Yeah.
Do we have a live one?
Okay.
Anybody out there?
This is from Ron Sweat. He's actually works here in Spokane, but I believe is currently in Palm Springs. So if the weather outside is still cold and wet, you can blame Ron because he's out of town. Love him and his wife. Great people, just really great people. It says social media has given people a place to have a loud voice and hide. Social media seems to be a bad place to give an opinion. I think that's pretty accurate,
I think
don't you?
that's-
Yeah.
It was mainly developed for social sharing.
Yeah.
Sharing live, sharing moments, sharing,
Right.
not berating with opinions.
Yeah.
And it was just, everyone's just gotten so wonky with this needing to stand up and get put in a good fight. And even when I see injustice, I don't lose my shit necessarily.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm sure I could be attacked for that. Well, there's a lot of these things that say if you don't engage politically or if you aren't outspoken. And I've tried to remain fairly neutral, although it's obviously no secret. And I've actually really never even referred to myself as a Democrat in any setting, aside from there have been times where, but I've voted both Democrat and Republican. It's the human to me.
I have too. This might come as a shock to some people. I
Yeah.
voted for Tom Foley a couple of times, and I guess for a couple of reasons. One is I had the great opportunity when I did a Saturday morning talk show to get to know him, okay, and respected what he was doing and so forth. And honestly, there were a couple of times the candidates running up against him were a little off center.
Yeah.
You know, like the, yeah, and so forth. And then my very first voting was for Robert Kennedy, back. You had to be 21 in those days, okay?
Oh, wow.
And that was the first election coming up. I thought at the time, well, here I'm going against my background and my parents and everything
Yes.
else and so forth. I have since found, publicly in things and in private, that yes, Kent, I did too. And these are from very conservative people because they were not happy with what was going on with Lyndon Johnson and,
Right.
and all that. And I'm thinking, okay, was it just my liberal stuff coming out or what? You know, I try to pack that back in.
Yeah, the last little bits of it sneaking out of your system.
But yeah. So let's talk about how do we move people to have good conversations. One is maybe to step back from social media and not let it take over your lives because we've all seen it take over people's lives.
Yeah. Plus, it's harvesting all your personal information. So, side note.
Yeah, apparently so. Apparently so.
It's got you categorized as an old white man.
Yeah. I'm sure that it does now.
You're on some list somewhere.
Yeah. And the funny part is that I've had a laugh or two at times when I've wanted to say something that my wife has said about people. Because she is as or more conservative than I am. And Ryan and others would say, oh, gosh, you can't say that out loud because you're a guy. You're a white guy.
Oh,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Just
Yeah.
you can't, whatever. Which in some ways is a shame that we can't just say what we want to say. But getting back to our theme of how do we move the needle forward on this 78 RPM?
One thing
Most of the audience won't even know what I'm talking about.
One thing I found interesting when we were speaking, you said you had spoken to someone beforehand about what we were going to do.
Yes.
And they were like, oh, man. What did they say? I won't. We
Talk-
don't have to say who they are in association to you, but they warned you about talking to a liberal.
Oh, that was my sister.
Okay, you're gonna-
That my
you
sister
can
in,
call it out, I don't know.
my sister in L.A. And I told her whatever. She was telling me some things. And I'm going, I don't have time to catch up today. Today's
Yeah.
a little busy, you know, that kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
said, but you might want to watch and so forth. And we're gonna have I'm gonna have a straightforward conversation and so forth. And she knew the other person was going to be on the other side of the political spectrum. She said, well, be careful of those libs. And that's literally what she said. And my response back was, no. This one I can have a decent and honest conversation with. And I wish I could do that with a lot more out there. And how do we get to that point?
When you were thinking about liberals, I'm glad she didn't say libtards, by the way, because I've been called that a few times. So she said libs.
Now I'm going to have to go back and look. No, I'm kidding.
Right? Read it, actually.
Yeah.
Be transparent here. Do you because I have friends that are conservatives. I'm friends with so many people.
Yeah.
A lot of my girlfriends, surprisingly to me, are conservatives. But so I don't
Yeah.
prejudge someone and how they're going to present themselves. But do you do that for liberals? Because I think anytime we're using the terms like a big old blanket statement.
And you're right. As soon as I said it, I'm going, that paints
Yeah.
a broad stroke, and it doesn't necessarily. I say it in terms of you to me, you're more liberal than I am.
Right.
That's a fact, okay?
Yeah.
And I probably would be considered a little more conservative than you.
I think
okay?
so.
I don't take that as an
Yes.
offense or
Right.
offensive
Yeah.
a statement. I remember way back, do you remember John Olson, who headed up the ministers in town here, and he was quite liberal. He worked on a lot of community project. When I was at Water Power,
Yeah.
I worked on with him on a project for poor people in town to get them to come in and talk and everything else. And I'm going, John's going to introduce me. Oh Lord, here it could go crazy. You know, this is his chance. And it's probably one of the nicest compliments I've ever had, in that he said, this is Kent. For those of you that don't know, he's quite conservative and all that, but he doesn't have his head in the sand. I saw that as, we can talk.
Yeah.
Okay? And we both knew where we were politically and all that, but we got along. And I'm thinking, gosh, we need that today. We can solve so many problems, not by bitching and complaining, but
Right.
by working together. There's some common solutions out there. There really are. I happen to think it's less government, okay? And that we as a community need to step up and help people. whether it be the high school kids or others. Let us help be part of the solution. It's not just all government, you know. And in my mind, a lot of what government does is not terribly effective or cost effective. That's kind of where I come from. Now, can everything be solved by government? No. I mean, by private sector and so
Right.
forth. But let's not exclude the private sector, and let's get some things done. I don't know. I just want to get to that point where I don't care whether they're on the very far right or very far left, that they feel comfortable enough to come in and have a conversation. Because I don't
Yeah.
think I'm that threatening.
I don't think you're threatening at all.
You,
I
you
mean, you're
paused.
just-
You paused for a heck of a long
Well,
time.
I was like, I don't know where you're going. I mean, you're just,
Honestly,
you're
you
just.
know?
It's not like you have a weapon or anything.
No.
I mean, you may.
Well, not under the
vote-
desk here. There's a Winchester 45, but no.
I was going to say we could test all this out and throw out some major issues. And
I'm
see how
open to
we-
any issue. My concern for today,
Yeah.
and I'm open if you want to go somewhere else. My concern is, how do we get our community, because it's our community,
Yes.
even to break away from the rest of the country and the state, to come together to solve some problems, and part of that is just talking. And that's what I'd like to see.
Part of it's talking, most of it's listening.
Okay.
We mentioned that a little bit yesterday, that there's so much talking. If you're showing up with an agenda, then you already aren't going to hear a lot of things.
No.
It's just like us today. It was brilliant that granted, it was like we don't have time and we don't want to have things in our head that skew us from just having a natural interaction. But don't show up with an agenda. You know what you're passionate about, but if we're truly intrigued by others,
Yeah.
and can hear
Yeah.
what they have to say, and they think there's ways that then you kind of come together more. And the thing is, if you humanize someone, it's much easier to be able to hear them, and
It
than
is,
if you're
isn't it?
demonizing them.
It is.
And the thing about you,
Uh-oh.
there's many things about you, many. But and even when I made the announcement that I was bringing what She Says was going to be a podcast on Spokane Talks Online, there were some derogatory comments about
Oh, yeah.
Spokane Talk, like, oh God,
Yeah.
I wouldn't turn that station on, and
Yeah, and you got a couple of people who said that, right?
yes,
Probably because of Kent more than anything else.
most likely,
Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
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 So,
So what did you say? How did you respond to that?
well, I don't have to respond to,
Okay.
to anything.
Okay.
I can't even remember how I responded, but I'm always like, I do my own thing, and I think it's a great platform, and that's the end of that. I don't have to. I mean, we need balance. We need balance with conservatives and
Yeah.
liberals to be working together, because one of us that's the other thing to understand too. If we chopped off and silenced half of us, that's not going to make things
Yeah. Yeah.
improve things 100%.
Yeah, and I
And it's
mentioned
going to be laden with its own sets of problems.
I mentioned Tom Foley because that was a time when people would sit down with opposing views and compromise, and we haven't
yeah.
seen that in
No.
a decade or so.
No, it's warfare,
Yeah.
and it's we're not voting at all, and,
And
we're
how am I going to win at the next election?
like totally strict with this is what's here on the table and this is what's here on the table, and nothing. There's no
Yeah.
connection. Seeing how you can make one thing out of two.
Yeah. My own
And
party is probably going to be a little upset with me come this fall because there's a candidate running that I will not support because he's been on the council for a number of years and now on the county commission for a number of years. And I am one who really believes very strongly in the common man or woman taking up and being a legislator or whatever the
Yes.
position is,
Yeah.
bringing some of that expertise and so forth, but not becoming a full-time politician. Okay? And I'm sure that will irritate some folks in town.
Right.
And so,
One thing I do like about I Can Appreciate You is you will call bullshit, no
Yeah.
matter who it is. I mean, you may not do it out, but internally I know you process things.
no, I do.
Whether they are Republican or Democrat or conservative,
Yeah.
progressive, liberal, blah, blah, blah. You know, and you have a great sense of when people aren't being authentic and honest and have the best interest.
Probably
and
age that has something to do with
Age.
that.
The other thing I like about you,
Uh-oh.
when I always think about trying
There are
to,
two things?
Yeah,
Oh,
two.
wow.
just two,
Okay.
that you love your grandchildren so much.
Yeah.
I mean, when you really think about the human side
Yeah.
of it,
And I see that with you and your
yes, I
son
Love
and
my-
your grandkids and all
I have
of
what
that.
grandkid?
One kid, yeah.
three girls, one boy.
Oh,
You may
boy.
not know all this stuff because my girls
No.
don't really want me talking a lot about them on social media, so that's all you
we
know.
should have brought pictures. That would really embarrass
Yeah.
them, wouldn't it?
Yeah, my son said he's tired of him being my internet clown.
Yeah.
But he's like, and they always say that. Without us,
Is this
you
your
wouldn't
son
have
that's
anything.
like 12 feet tall?
Yeah.
God, he's a big kid, isn't he?
Yes,
Does
he's
he have to
big.
look down when he puts the basketball in the basket?
I wish he did. He can dunk, but he won't do it in a game yet. So
Oh.
we're hoping. But
Yeah.
anyway, no. But I like there's that that lace. We all have pain and heartache.
Yeah.
You mentioned even before your wife is a painter and she's had some challenges
Yeah, yeah.
health wise, and that's a hurt inside your heart and something
Yeah.
that you guys
Well,
deal with. So being able to see that.
And we have as of Monday, a 48-year-old Downs son, our firstborn.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I get a little testy at times on abortion and a few things like that.
yeah.
And the funny story, and I'm not trying to get into politics, is I had a chance to meet Kathy McMorris Rogers. Now, slightly over 10 years, 8 years ago, and
Okay.
I walked up to her. It was at the Spokane Club. Somebody else invited me to this, and I said, Kathy, I just want to say hi, and I know what it's like because my son is going to turn 40. He's a Down syndrome young man, and she started asking questions, and part of it was, well, it was a little different then, wasn't it? Oh Lord, it was different. The expectation was that you put your son or daughter in an institution.
God.
That was the question then, not whether you do, but which one. That literally was the option. I mean, that really was the option.
Yeah.
Obviously, we didn't go that route. And
Yeah.
then when you do something like that, you find out who your friends and family are. I can tell you. You know, we lost
Yeah.
some friends over that.
Wow.
And anyway,
And that just what an asinine thing to lose friends over.
exactly.
It's just so the judgment everybody has to make on others' lives.
Yeah.
It's like, and usually when I see that, I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
wish you could take a step back because obviously there's things that you're trying to avoid within your own realm. that-
Right, yes. Nobody knows what you and I face when you go home and I go home and go back
Yeah.
to work and
Right.
those kinds of things. And we'll put on a nice face today. Well, one nice face, one ugly face.
Gotta keep it balanced.
And so forth, and do what we need to do here
Yeah.
and chat. But then you walk out of here and go to your office and you're editing for the next edition and
Yes.
and going to get a call from your kids on why did you mention me on the air and those kinds of
They
things.
won't watch it.
Oh, they won't? Okay, well, good.
This is a safe space.
Okay.
They don't have time for that.
But I think,
Yeah.
you're right. We don't know often what other people are struggling and what we often have in common. And my youngest kid is 37, going on 38 this year. And I've got a 5 through 18-year-old 8 grandkids, and they
Yeah.
are what is important, and so forth. And a lot of things drive me that way. For instance, my stance on drunk driving. I have no tolerance.
Right.
I don't like this 3 strikes and then you get really spanked. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. You choose to drink and drive,
Yeah.
and the consequences there because I don't want my grandchild killed. Okay, or your kids.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
God,
to
please
me,
no.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer, and I think the legislators, I know they moved it down from 4 to 3 or something before it becomes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It needs to be. There needs to be a harsh punishment right up front. Because it's going to happen
Yeah,
again.
right.
There are just some things like that drive me, not because I'm a mean guy, but because I care about my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess that there are a lot of things that you have that are, that are important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you have 3 girls and a boy. Okay. How old are they?
The girls are 18, and then Christopher's 17,
Okay.
and my youngest is 13,
Okay.
and then a 2-year-old grandbaby.
Oh, yeah.
And they really do rule my world, and I have to be peaceful for them. I
yeah.
want to be able to enjoy time with them and be present. And if I'm wound up with all
Yeah.
the weight of the world on my shoulders, and there are times when I have little mini breakdowns every now and then.
Oh, yeah, we all
It's
do.
hard being in media in the first place,
Yeah.
the pressure and the times and everything that are going on.
Yeah.
And if you have visibility in the community, sometimes you're a target for things.
Yeah.
I've gotten targeted, and people have waged campaigns to have me fired because I'm too compassionate at times. Well, and
Excuse me.
I received hate. One of the The most hate mail I ever received was an article I ran on Two Moms, One Happy Family. And so it was a lesbian couple who had adopted 5 children that nobody else wanted.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the most beautiful stories I had read. And it was really sad that no one could see through their filters
Yeah,
to see the
yeah.
beauty of it. And the people that were probably most angry and writing in aren't going to adopt
No.
drug-addicted babies and
Yeah.
kids with alcohol fetal syndrome and all
Yeah.
other types. But these women were amazing. But I just thought it was so weird. It's like, God, this is a beautiful story. It really touched me. And then to have hate mail,
It became political.
very political,
Yeah.
that it's dangerous to have me in the position I'm in, and
gee.
on and on and on. And I'm just like, I wish that people could see more of the people behind it and not take it on.
Before we close, one last question.
Yes.
Is being a grandparent the greatest thing in the world?
It absolutely is.
Did anyone
Yeah.
tell you how great it was going to be?
No, and
No.
I hadn't prepped for that because that was so far down the road for me. But my
Yeah.
daughter was a teenager, and so it was a surprise. But I think, I mean, I wouldn't be a proponent of teenage pregnancy because
Right,
that's
right.
just something we want to make sure that
Yeah.
we're mindful of timing and
Yeah.
success, best trajectories. But it's the best surprise of my life. I never knew that I wanted. I mean, absolutely adore her. And that was the other thing when there are people, I mean, people have opinion about everything. It doesn't even have to be political. Worldviews, all that stuff wrapped in. But I remember being at an event and a woman had come up to me and she said, I was in a group of people, and she said, oh my gosh, I call the baby Love Nugget. She says, oh my gosh, Love Nugget is so cute. And I was like, yeah. And she's asked me a few questions. And so the crowd started listening, and one of the guys asked, well, who's Love Nugget?
Yeah.
I said, oh, my grandbaby. He's like, oh, you're kind of young to be a grandma. And I said,
And you said, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I said, A, I'm a glamma, and B, my daughter was 16. And he goes, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for you. And he just was like, sucked all the,
Yeah.
like everything fell to the floor. And I'm like, don't be sorry for me and don't be sorry for her. Because that girl, if anyone's going to be successful under any kind of
Yeah.
challenge, it's going to be my daughter.
Yep. I can't
And she's
imagine
brilliant.
she wouldn't be.
Right. She's brilliant and she has a support system.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of, it's just kind of an odd twist here too when you think about it. I'm always interested in human psychology, but a lot of times when parents have kids who are really messing up, they want to send them away, or
Yeah.
there's historically when girls have become pregnant, sometimes they're shipped
Well, I remember
off,
we
or
used,
they
we
have
used to
to
have
go.
the homes.
You had
Remember?
homes- You had homes for them, and I like to stand up and say, the time that your child needs you the most
Yeah.
in the entire world,
Yeah.
and you're going to turn your back on them.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people in that kind of situation. We're just turning our backs on each
Yeah.
other all the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we don't know. I mean, there's so much, and I don't know, Ken. I don't know that any problems are going to be solved. I don't know that this is going to make a difference at all. Aside from the fact that we have visibility in our community,
Yeah.
we're leaders in our community, we're 100% responsible, and we have the great honor of having that to be able to actually make a real difference. Not fight for a certain right we want, but
Right,
to
right.
make a difference and lead with respect, integrity,
Yeah.
respect,
Yeah.
that we can listen, that we can sit in the same room with someone
Right.
without preconceiving that we're not going to like them.
By their
or-
looks or their hats or by their
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, I've had readers write in that didn't like something in the magazine. Well, this is where the libtard stuff comes up. And this one woman, she took a picture of my Facebook page, this is public, and then she posted on her page, and she said, this one, I put about the Women's March last year. And I hadn't also put in the magazine the pro-life march. I didn't even know about the pro-life march because no one had sent me anything about it.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. I mean, people just don't know what you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
It wasn't that I chose not to.
Right.
I mean, I would have honored them both, but she was so upset and angry about it, and that she was telling everyone, and she put my email, barrage her, get her fired. We need to oust her. We need her out of
Yeah.
here. So they started this whole campaign. Well, and so she was the only woman, and then it was all men that were writing out to me saying, you shouldn't be putting women's concerns in the magazine at all. It's a city magazine. I'm like, well, I don't think you're a reader because you're not aware of what we've done. But I can handle those dialogues. I don't care what kind of vitriol comes at me.
Yeah.
I can handle that kind of dialogue back and forth. First of all, I appreciate you sharing so passionately your stance on this. My view in the magazine is that I cover all people and all different presentations that I'm aware of.
Right. Right. Right.
And I make no apologies for that. And there are things that I put in the magazine about different events and such that maybe I wouldn't want to attend, but I'm still, it's not about me, it's about our community, and I want them to be seeing the opportunities are out there that are in alignment with the things that are important to them.
And we live in a good community.
We do.
We live in a caring community, I do believe.
Yeah.
I believe compared to a lot of communities around the country that we're much more compassionate, that we step up to help others. All you
Yeah.
have to do is watch the news tonight. If there's somebody who's in need,
Yeah, absolutely.
my friend Sammy Eubanks, who saw somebody
Yeah.
who was without a car, drove and gave his car,
Wow.
second car. And I single him out as an example
Yeah.
of the dozens that happen every day in our community.
They're very
And so
generous.
we hear about the headlines tonight. We
Yeah.
hear about the murder, the this or that, but there are so many good things going on, and I know you're covering them both there and here.
Yeah, I love to be in magazine media because I get to be the glossy girl where it's shining a positive light on our community. Not that I'm not afraid to
Yeah.
step up and talk about hard things too, and we have a feature in that where we get more journalistic and really dig
Right,
in and
right.
see both sides. But I don't want to ever give that and leave someone feeling like
Yeah,
empty and
because
unsafe.
because
I
then
want
they
to have a
don't come back.
resolution. Well, yeah, and even if we touch on something difficult, I want to make sure we have a well-rounded so people can process it.
Right.
We're not just dumping something on their lap and leaving it with them. And the news is often, and then that's what the news is about.
Yep.
And I'm so lucky I don't have to be the newsprint one. I can be the glossy girl.
Well, and you look at the local news, and I'm not attacking at all the local news. It is
Yeah.
what it is. Of the 30 minutes, 18 minutes is news. Okay? That's
Yeah, I
not
agree.
a lot that they can do to get into any real story.
Right.
That will be the exception tonight because of GU's basketball game. That'll all, okay. But beyond that,
Yeah.
a minute and a half story is a long story. You can spend more
yeah.
time in your
Yeah.
magazine. We can spend more time, and you do, on She Says,
Yeah.
having that conversation. Not everybody wants that. I get that. But sometimes they want to get to know the person or the issue or the new business or why she does what she does, kind of thing, a little bit
Yeah.
more than just the headline.
Well, and that's true. The funny thing is about that is a lot of times people just read the headline.
I know, yes.
Or the little intro. When you read I
Yeah.
read the article and then I start reading the comments, and the number one rule is never read the comments. Whether it's your stuff or anyone else's, it's just,
Yeah.
oof.
Well, in the nightly news, the decision
Yeah.
to watch that channel versus that is made in the first 7 seconds.
Oh, right.
That's how we
Yeah.
are today,
Yeah.
and when I say that, that's 5 or 10 years old. So I can only imagine it's worse today,
Yeah.
given Facebook and everything else.
Right.
Where we want it yesterday, and we want it brief.
Well, and sometimes we hear a glitch of negative news,
Yeah.
but we never hear a resolution to it, or sometimes it's not the correct thing, but we just don't happen to be in the right place. I'm not saying the whole fake news stuff,
Right,
because
right.
it may have just been an error or whatever, but people are left with the impression of whatever they received, and they aren't necessarily going to receive the
Well,
correction
even if
later
it's
on.
corrected,
Yeah.
most of those who saw it at the beginning will not see the correction or the update. I don't mean correction as much as
Or they won't allow it
updates.
to be absorbed
Yeah, yeah.
in their system.
Okay, after being married to my wife, coming up on 51 years.
Congratulations.
One of the things I have learned is it's always her choice and her last words. So
Oh.
that being the case, I'm going to let you take us out and have the final word.
Oh, I feel like I've had a lot of the word the whole time. I thought you were going to do most of the talking. I feel like I did.
You did just
Are you feeling
fine.
okay about that?
I'm feeling absolutely okay. Yeah, yeah, I am.
I thought maybe I needed to tip the table over or something. That's the
Oh,
joke.
okay.
Just to,
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
The problem with that is we'd make you put the table
I
back.
know, and I could
okay?
do that 'cause it's strong.
First of all, before you have your last words and
Yes.
say goodbye to our audience,
Yeah.
thank you
My pleasure.
for who you are,
Ah,
for that your willingness to have a good conversation,
Yeah.
and for what you do on She Says.
Thank you.
The thing with the Bozzy thing, that's, you get paid for that, so you don't need to be thanked for that.
No.
But seriously,
Yeah.
I think if we all have conversations like we've had and
Yeah.
walk away to continue to be friends, I love the comment you made yesterday on talking about politics and everything else,
Right.
but most important, friends, and I consider
Right.
you a friend. And so thank you for that,
You're
and
welcome.
you get the last word.
Oh, gosh. I don't even know what the last word is. I mean, you can go back to the cliches of, it's not a cliche, it's just the truth of being kind
Yeah.
to one another. For when, have personal accountability, and not only how you express yourself, but how people receive you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know people, I have.
Why is she looking straight at me when she... Okay, I'll work on it.
I had a friend, and he was dating a woman, and he wasn't serious about her, but they continued this relationship, like full-on dating kind of thing. I'm like, well, that is a girlfriend. He's like, no, it's not. We're not girlfriend, boyfriend. I'm like, well, the whole, like, if you wrote it all down on paper and then you wrote down someone's girlfriend, boyfriend profile,
And it had somebody-
they would be the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, no, I'm really honest with her. I'm not serious about it and everything. And I'm like, well, okay. So his hands were washed when he was honest about it.
Okay.
And I challenged him to understand that he also had a responsibility in understanding her position and how he was perhaps taking
Interpreted.
advantage of a situation as
Yeah.
well. And I think, and with the whole last stuff with the Rachel Dolezal stuff, when I reached out to her, because we had been friends,
Right.
I challenged her to please hear what people are saying.
Yeah.
They felt as though they were duped, and et cetera. And instead of saying, no, you weren't, and this is how I am, no, really taking that accountability.
Take that in.
Take it in.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the number one way that we can work through things, is understanding how we're expressing ourselves.
Yeah.
And you're not just Instagram. You're not just Twitter.
Yeah.
You're not 15 different things because you're at work here, home here. You're
Yeah.
still the same person.
Good.
And so, like, you were expressing conservative Kent and is now conservative Spokane Talks Online. That's how that happens.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a problem that you're conservative. I think some of the fights that have happened in headbutting, is particularly on
Social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where there's no one is going to feel good about that.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for people to kind of shake themselves off of that once they have that. Once they're tainted
No.
in any way about someone.
That's true. That is very
Yeah.
true.
So
So
I
this
don't have any grand.
this conversation will continue
Yes.
in our own programs.
Yeah.
It will also continue with our regular host for Meeting of the Minds, which is Sulani Madsen. And we've kind of been not doing it the last few months, and she's going to kind of continue this conversation. So I will take the last word.
You go for
That's-
it. We're not married.
I know. How do I respond to that and not be in trouble one way or the other? Okay, there is no out there, is there?
I'm a free bird, so I won't be in trouble with anyone.
It's fun that we can laugh about so many things,
Yeah.
and I think we need more of that.
Yeah.
Sulani is going to take on and do this on a more regular basis, and I'm hoping that for those of you that are watching and you'd like to join and come in and talk, you have an invitation. You can go on our website, and it's info@SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Send us an email and so forth, because we want to involve more of the public. People have, I don't care what you're thinking out there, you have some good ideas. Let's talk. Okay,
I love that.
that's why
Yeah.
why I established this.
Yeah.
And so let's do that. So
Yeah.
thank you again.
You're
all right,
welcome. My
for
pleasure.
everything,
Yeah.
and we'll see you next time.